Respected dignitaries in attendance, dear professors, research scholars, students, and all others. My name is Vishnu Prasad T.R. I am a research scholar in the English department of St. Thomas College, Thrissur in Kerala. My research is on dystopian fiction. I am also a life member of the Indian Association for Science Fiction Studies. My duty here is to anchor the 12th session of the Science Fiction Conference. This session is chaired by Dr. Balaji A. Navle. Dr. Navle is an assistant professor in the English department of Deogiri College, Aurangabad in Maharashtra. He is a dedicated and passionate scholar of science fiction. Moving on to the presenters. The first presentation in this session is by Ms. Sujata Swami. She is a research scholar and a French faculty at the Center for Global Languages in Bengaluru City University, Bengaluru in Karnataka. She is presenting a paper titled Space Adventures in French Literature. The second presentation is by Ms. Meenal R. Kale. She is working as an assistant professor in the Department of Humanities in Yeshwantrao Chavan College of Engineering, Nagpur in Maharashtra. Her presentation is on the topic Time and Space in Jayant Narlik's Virus. Our next presentation is by Ms. Divya MP. She is an assistant professor in the Political Science Department of the Government First Grade College, Virajpet in Kodagu, Karnataka. Ms. Divya is going to present a paper on the topic Contemporary Concerns and Challenges in Higher Education, some reflections on humanities. Next presentation is a joint paper by Dr. Kamsali Nagaraja and Dr. Balakrishnan Manikyam. Dr. Kamsali Nagaraja is an associate professor in the physics department of Bangalore University. Dr. Balakrishnan Manikyam is a professor in the physics department of Bangalore University. Their presentation is on the topic Does Cloud Seeding Increase Rainfall? A Fact or Fiction? This session's last presentation is by Ms. Rujita Machal. She is an assistant professor in the English department of Motilal Nehru College, affiliated to the University of Delhi. Her presentation is on the topic The Mystical Twist in Indian Speculative Fiction. So let us now move on to the session.
Hello everyone, I'm Sujata Swami, research scholar and French faculty at the Center for Global Languages, Bengaluru City University. My presentation is on space adventures in French literature. Space has fascinated man for centuries. We could say it was the ardent efforts of scientists around the world that made space exploration in the 20th century a reality. However, while acknowledging the vital role of scientists in making these space missions a success, we cannot neglect the passion that science fiction writers have had for space exploration, even before space research could make these achievements possible. I'm going to speak about two science fiction literary works. The first one is the short novel Micromegas, and the second one is the story arc Destination Moon and Explorers on the Moon from the comic book series The Adventures of Tintin. Micromegas was written by the French philosopher and writer Voltaire in 1752. It is a story about the space voyage of Micromegas, a giant alien from a planet that orbits Sirius. When Micromegas was young, he writes a book about insects, but this book is declared a heresy and he is banished from the court for 800 years. Micromegas decides to travel around the universe to develop his intellect and spirit. Sliding down sunbeams and hopping from one planet to another, he traverses the Milky Way and finally arrives on Saturn, where he befriends the secretary of the Academy of Saturn, a dwarf only 1.8 kilometers tall. After becoming good friends, they decide to make a space trip together. When they reach Earth, they find a ship full of scientists returning from an Arctic expedition. They are very impressed to learn that despite being so minute, humans are intelligent creatures. When Micromegas asks them what the nature of their soul is, they all give different answers. The last scientist declares that the universe was made uniquely for mankind, and Micromegas and his companion fall into a fit of laughter. The story ends with Micromegas promising to write a book for the humans before his departure to explain to them the purpose of everything. However, later when the Secretary of the Academy of Sciences opens the book, they are astonished to find only blank pages. It is said that Voltaire wrote Micromegas to celebrate Isaac Newton's legacy. Voltaire was also influenced by the philosophy of John Locke, and many of his thoughts have been incorporated into the story. Many of Voltaire's fictitious ideas were centered around actual inventions and discoveries made during the scientific revolution. During this period, systematic experimentation was emphasized as the most valid research method. It was during this time that Newton formulated the law of universal gravitation. Important inventions were the microscope and the telescope. The name Micromegas is composed of two words, micro, meaning very small, and megas, meaning very big. Voltaire envisions space exploration and even the search for extraterrestrial life centuries before the term astronaut found its meaning. At first glance, Micromegas comes across as an absolutely absurd tale about the space adventure of an alien from another planet. But a closer look reveals how Voltaire, one of the most influential thinkers of the Enlightenment period, uses the elements of science fiction as a means to attain the goal of educating the people and to help alleviate their suffering. Science fiction acts as a medium through which he is able to voice his opinions regarding social, economic, and political exploitation, censure, and the absurdity of war, among other pressing issues of the time. The theme of space travel itself is very pertinent. While traveling, we observe, question, and compare. We discover other cultures and also learn to respect them. In this way, curiosity leads to tolerance, a very prominent feature in Voltaire's discourses. Voltaire also makes us reflect on man's conception of his place in this infinite universe. The second literary work, The Story Arc of Destination Moon and Explorers on the Moon, was written 2 centuries later by the Belgian cartoonist Hergé in 1953 and 54. It is about the space voyage of Tintin, his dog Snowy, Professor Calculus, and his friend Captain Haddock. The crew successfully takes off for a manned mission to the moon. The rocket lands on the moon exactly as planned in the middle of the Hipparchus crater. Tintin is the first human to step onto the moon. They start their observation work and they explore the moon in a moon tank. They discover some caves in which there is ice. Later, on board the rocket, they find a stowaway, a spy named Colonel Jorgen, who tries to hijack the rocket, but his plan is foiled by Tintin. Wary of the limited oxygen supply, the crew decides to cut short its stay on the moon. On approaching Earth, all the crew members fall unconscious, but Tintin stays awake long enough to set the rocket to pilot mode, and the rocket makes a safe landing. The idea of sending Tintin to the moon first occurred to Hergé in 1949, when man's first space flight was more than a decade away, and Neil Armstrong's lunar landing about 2 decades away. He was influenced by other science fiction authors of the time, such as Edgar P. Jacobs and Jules Verne. Hergé wanted his imaginary story to be as realistic as possible, and so he avoided using fantastic elements such as moonmen and extraterrestrial monsters. Instead, keeping in mind the need for realistic detail, he began a meticulous research. He collected all sorts of documents and books related to rockets and space travel. Hergé wanted to portray the latest cutting-edge technology, so he based his rocket on the design of the V-2 rocket developed by German scientists during World War II. Hergé had a model of the rocket constructed with detachable parts, which he showed to physicist Alexander Antonov to ascertain if it was a realistic representation of what a moon rocket might look like. It was only after obtaining his approval that they went on to produce accurate sketches of scenes set inside the rocket for the comic book. Hergé also imagined all the components of the spacesuit, such as the radio transmitter, oxygen cylinders, and a special helmet. He ensured that science and technology were as accurate as possible. He explained how the nuclear reactor burned uranium fuel, and he depicted how Captain Haddock's whiskey formed itself into little balls under its own surface tension in zero-gravity space. However, one very significant milestone in this space adventure was Tintin's discovery of water in the form of ice on the moon, a fact that space researchers learned only in recent years, but which Tintin fans have known since 1954. Hergé uses a great deal of science throughout the story. This is infused with humor and interesting incidents of spies, sabotage, and snipers, all of which help lighten the technical explanation. In fact, one can say that the story has a rather pedagogic tone, as he bases his convincing science fiction tale on the laws of physics that were known then. His story educates the reader about some intriguing concepts of space exploration and creates an awareness and an interest for science and space research. Tintin's space adventures happen in a fictional world where scientific rules hold true. When Hergé imagined the storyline, he consulted astronautical experts and he made it a point to learn about the technology of the time. He carried out an extensive research. This is how Hergé's passion was able to take Tintin to the moon, almost 2 decades before Neil Armstrong landed there. Science fiction writers are always one step ahead of scientists. They are able to picture future technologies and visualize the seemingly impossible. Today, the concept of private space travel as seen in science fiction literature is set to become a reality. NASA has opened up the International Space Station to commercial business, and this includes tourism. The company Axiom Space is selling tickets for a space trip on a SpaceX capsule from rocket tycoon Elon Musk's company. It includes a 10-day stay on the International Space Station and costs about $55 million per passenger. This would be the first fully private human spaceflight to orbit, and it could take off as soon as the second half of 2021. Seats are filling fast, and as of now, there are only 2 tickets left. Through the space adventures of Micromegas and Tintin, we see how science fiction is a powerful tool which can be used to educate its readers. Using science fiction as a medium, Voltaire was able to influence and educate the people of the 18th century with his philosophically empowering thoughts. Hergé educated his readers of the 20th century about space research, engaging the readers' minds and kindling their imagination. We can say that it was very appropriate for Hergé to celebrate the achievement of man landing on the moon by producing an illustration of NASA astronaut Neil Armstrong arriving on the moon only to be greeted by Tintin, Snowy, Captain Haddock, and Professor Calculus, carrying roses and a sign welcoming him. We can conclude by saying that when science fiction, literature, art, and science come together, they convert dreams into reality.
Hello everyone. I, Meenal Kale, would like to present my paper entitled Time and Space in Jayant Narlikar's Virus. Bill Gates, while talking about computer and its advancement, once said, "The computer was been born to solve problem that did not exist before." Jayant Narika's fiction Virus projects a future where our sagacious neighbor in the space will approach us through a cyberpunk. The term virus has evolved through time. Narlikar portrays a panoramic perspective towards the term virus. Earlier, virus was related to biological disease. With advancement, it is now used oftenly with the computer. Narlikar emphasizes that virus will evolve through time and space, leaving its adverse effect on mankind. Even presently, 2020 is witnessing the gut-wrenching effects of virus. According to Norman, the most feared expression of modern time is the computer is down. The fiction Virus talks about such computer breakdown. The fiction projects Virat Project, which is aiming and tracing the footprints of extraterrestrial in the space. But while advancing in the space, we need to consider its adverse effect on mankind and on our planet. Virus portrays a picture of dystopian future due to incredible dependency on computer which is intervened by extraterrestrial. Narlikar expresses his distress towards increased automation and its adverse effect which will result into a dystopian future due to machine revolution. The fiction Virus is a cyber science fiction, portraying a horrifying image and a chaotic life if computer fails. Cyber science fiction addresses problems in near or distant future arising due to computers. In fiction, complex network is hacked, creating a global threat. It gives a distinctive glimpse of future where our networks are affected with virus, where the source is not from the earth but from a distant space and will raise a question of human existence. Like H.G. Wells and Arthur C. Clarke, even, Narlikar speculates that extraterrestrials are intelligent and powerful, which can pose a threat to human existence on the earth. Automation is like a Voldemort and can destroy mankind without using any advanced weapon. And this is what portrayed even in Virus. The future with automation, which is intervened by extraterrestrial, horrifies us. To know the unknown is like a voyage of destruction. Ratnakar Bhelkar, while talking about extraterrestrial, says that Narlikar possesses an ambivalent view about extraterrestrial who are intelligent and powerful. Though they are benevolent or ambivalent, human race has to prepare for the future culture shocks in the grasp of an alternative abode extraterrestrial. To conclude my presentation, I would like to say Virus as a cyber science fiction presents and speculates about extraterrestrial space. Narlikar also alerts human society about destruction due to automation. Cyberculture in this Indian science fiction has a threat of virus from another planet. The thought of being alien is a myth. Extraterrestrial are more advanced than human and we have to be prepared for such cyberculture shock. Everyone have to search an alternative space, but this should be done with unity and equality. Towards the end, I would like to end my presentation with this catching statement. I hope aliens believe in me. Thank you.
Hello, good morning to you all. Respected chair of the session and dear friends, this is Divya MB, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science from Government First Grade College, Virajpet, Kodagu District. Today I would like to present a paper on contemporary concerns and challenges in higher education, some reflection on humanities. My presentation focus on the following framework. First is introduction, objectives, hypothesis, statement of the problem, suggestions, conclusion, and few references. Now we move on to introductory part of the presentation. Education is plays a huge role in our life. Education is also considered as a very essential basic element like food, shelter and cloth. Modern welfare states through its functionaries it give more importance to provide education to peoples of the country. Education is the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. It should be transformed to the needs of the time and changing scenario of the world. It provides an opportunity to critically reflect upon the social, economic, cultural, moral, and spiritual issues facing humanity. In the era of knowledge explosion, higher education is considered as a major stone in the process of educating of people, and it is connect with human development of the country because through a way our country is witnessed for produced scientists, engineers, technologists, doctors, teachers, administrators, servicemen, managers and academic researchers who are in great demand all over the world. Higher education provides specialized knowledge and skilled persons for national development. In our context of the country, while the correlation between people and higher education is not up to the mark, the increasing youth population can be a great asset if potential employability is brought to fruition. Conversely, if we fail to provide education and employment, then it will open a downside gate of nation's economy. Therefore, we can identify the contemporary role of education in achieving sustainability of the nation. Here is objectives of the study. Firstly, to study the complex variables responsible for lower level enrollment ratio in higher education. Secondly, to review the effectiveness of different educational programs and their impacts on higher education. Thirdly, to assess the educational gaps and suggest suitable remedial measures for improvement of higher education. Hypothesis of the study. The correlation between humanities and trend in higher education is interrelated. Secondly, higher education in our country should be adopt some new educational techniques and models. Thirdly, some aspects of new educational policy reflects the curriculum, hence higher education institutions need to respond to demand for new skills, ethical values. Science is a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations and predictions about the universe. And it is also the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. Later, the study of science divided into two categories, that is natural sciences and social sciences. Zoology, botany, chemistry, physics, these are all subjects or comes under natural sciences. And history, economics, political science, sociology, philosophy, psychology, jurisprudence, these are all subjects comes under social sciences. There is some argument about similarities and differences between the study of social sciences and humanities. Humanities studies about human being collectively. The term humanities are academic disciplines that study aspects of human society and culture. The field of humanities is involved in the study of human condition. It uses qualitative methods that are primarily analytical, critical, or speculative in contrast with the empirical approaches of the natural sciences. Humanities is also the study of different cultural aspects. It analyzes the flaws in humankind and how it can be improved. These cultural aspects include speech, knowledge, beliefs, arts, technologies, ideals, and rules. With a focus on these aspects, it examines and prescribes the type of behavior considered appropriate to an individual in his or her efforts to achieve the status of being a cultured human being. A cultured person is often thought to be refined and well versed in the arts, philosophy, and the languages. The study and application of the humanities to the human environment with particular attention to reflecting our diverse heritage, traditions, and history to the relevance of the humanities to the current conditions national life. The humanities subjects help us to understand others through their languages, histories, cultures, and many other things. And it encourages us to think creatively. It teaches us to reason about being human and to ask questions about our world or surrounding. On the other hand, these subjects keeps us very lively with update and critical citizens. There are some reasons and aims why we are teach humanities at our primary education. As mentioned Aristotle, man is social animal. Hence, it's important to the child to explore and understand his social and cultural environment. Firstly, the study of humanities plays vital role to develop in the child a sense of belonging to the society through a gradual widening of his mental observation from his immediate home to the wider world. Secondly, the study of humanities encourages to adopt morals, values, ethics in our life, which can lead our life with better. Thirdly, it helps to understand about rich and composite cultural heritage and to explore our mind into different identities which are existing our society like sex, creed, language, region, religion, nation, etc. Fourthly, the study of humanities helps to understand the existed and to learn solve our own problems from social experiences. Fifthly, the study is about philosophical values like truth, coordination, cooperation, simplicity, trust, nonviolence, liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice, etc. Those normative values shapes our personality and existence in present world. Gradually, all these above aspects will be definitely helps to extending our knowledge about the significance of social, political, and economic institutions of the country and motivate about our civic consciousness and importance of our duties when we are getting so many by enjoying our rights. The humanities have historically formed the foundation for the model of learning used in higher education, where transferable skills such as reasoning, logic, problem solving, critical thinking, and communication are a recognized public good. These skills and the public values they provide, such as the capacity for evaluating evidence and arguments, making informed choices, creative thinking, and problem solving, have immense utilitarian benefit. Here is some issues of higher education in humanities. Once Aristotle quoted that those persons who are making in-depth study on governance have understood that the future destiny of any country is dependent on the education of the youths. That statement proves the significance of humanities and its studies. Even though there are huge arguments and illusions affected jointly on the survival and decline of the humanities. First of all, the overall enrollment ratio in humanities is quite low as compared to the other disciplines of natural sciences. Students wrongly receive that humanities subjects teach humanity, values, morals, ethics, etc. Those normative things not work out entire their life. Secondly, the notion of youths or it irrelevance of the subjects and syllabus in this contemporary and competitive era. Also thought that humanities subjects are more concentrated on theories and rather than practical knowledge. So it may affect on job opportunities or not job securities in social sciences. Thirdly, some prejudice about the applicability of social sciences research and option about further study. Its productivity is very less to compare with natural sciences. Fourthly, some series of comments like traditional methods of teaching, inadequate facilities, infrastructure, and not updated with new ICT or technological development, the nature of curriculum is not effective and relevant. These things are already vanishing by some new policies, but it's need to be highlighted in some mainstream discourses. In some contexts, misconception about the selection of the disciplines before entering into higher education in particular subject, our root work should start from undergraduate level as well as primary and secondary educational level, because if a teacher, parents, society not motivate to the child to know about our surrounding, gradually it affect on some other level. Fifthly, each subject has its own importance and strength. Hence, comparison is without knowledge is ruin a significance and scope of the subject. Therefore, from academicians, higher educational departments, and government take some initiatives about mainstream academic discussions and provide financial support, scholarship, learning exchange opportunities to students. And also some issues like gender issues and multilingual crisis affected on higher education, especially on humanities. Here is some suggestions about improvement of higher education. If academicians and research ignored these arguments and put some efforts to make social sciences or humanities disciplines relevant on this contemporary world, their first effort make erase some blind notions from the society. Of course, get a job is a part of educational life, though we never forget the knowledge what we are gaining from all those subjects. So widening our knowledge is should be our primary importance or concerns of the studies. Therefore, the present study highlights or came with some alternative suggestions as follows. At the very beginning, from the responsible departments or stakeholders should campaign about the significance of higher education among youths and their parents, because parents are very conscious about quality of infrastructure, residential facilities, communication skills, fees, stipends, scholarship, these issues including employment opportunities. Secondly, educational institutions at the very beginning highlights some job opportunities in various fields and set up the students' mindset to job oriented through its publications, newsletters, magazines, official websites, etc. So it gradually reduces wrong notion towards job opportunities in humanities. Those student circle may spread this awareness beyond their circle. It helps to reach objectives of higher education in society. Also given importance to implementation of higher educational policies, choice based, credit based opportunities to students, which helps for development of skills. Methods of higher educations also have to be appropriate to the needs of learning to learn, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to become. Student centric education and employment of dynamic methods of education will require from teachers new attitudes and new skills. Methods of teachings through lectures will have to subordinate to the methods that will lay strain on self study, personal consultation between teachers and pupils, and dynamic sessions of seminars and workshops. Methods of distance education will have to be employed on a vast scale. We notice that there is some gender bias in selection to subjects in higher education level. For example, the study of history more focused on male chauvinistic ideas like expansion of the territory, attacks, struggles, disputes, war, reforms in administration or revenue system, social or educational system, etc. Therefore, we considered that knowledge of the subject should flow freely. Then only we understand real mean of that. Higher education should enlighten about society, security, and removal of social bias in education sector also. Therefore, should take some initiatives and special attention for women education. And ICT or application of new technologies or possibilities in social sciences also. That's a reason why humanities gradually moving towards drastic changes. We may keep our subjects more lively with using of this new technology or computer applications, programs, animation, entertainment mode, etc. Also, examination reforms gradually shifting from the terminal, annual, and semester examination to regular and continuous assessment of students' performance in learning must be implemented. Universities take some initiative to redesign of their course plan, pattern of the examination, and evaluation mode because there is serious comment on humanities subjects to ask for long details or long notes in short time schedule. Anyhow, academicians concern is might different, but assume that it's a punishment of mug up. Therefore, it's necessary to realize among themselves widening knowledge about particular subject is our concern or interest rather than testing memory power and other things. While we hear argument like humanities are more concentrated on theories rather than practical knowledge, it's a responsibility of notable scholars, academicians, researchers, teachers should take some initiatives about keep liveliness of the subject. Update with what newly happening in our subject and let me know about students also through discussion. Therefore, can take some steps to a deep integration of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary exercises. And one of the most problem in humanities is multilingual crisis. We know the mother tongue crisis in our country. Through we understand that language itself is not a knowledge, it's a way of getting knowledge. So it shouldn't be obstacle of our study. Therefore, we can find some alternatives like linguistic center, regional language institutions, transition centers, upcoming computer softwares, mobile applications, which definitely gives little relaxed mind to us. Also, to take care about to access relevant study materials in local languages. Furthermore, government should take interest on improve basic facilities, infrastructures, e-sources, teaching staff, technological improvement of the humanities colleges, and also encourages to enrollment in this stream, timely appointment and provide facilities to teaching tutors, scholarship, financial support, hostels facilities, etc. The nature of the government is in the hands of youths. Therefore, create awareness about voting, political activities, rights, duties, etc. Through that, we can uphold the democratic principles like liberty, equality, justice, etc. Generation trend that can gradually change from logically and critically dealing the subjects encourages to questioning attitude and logical reasoning intellectual sense of the world. Our university also take care about libraries have a good collection of books, but they are all in a mess. Therefore, give importance to library must be online and conducive for serious study. The above efforts are we can be make for the survival of the subject. The problems facing higher education are coming at the sector fast and furious from different angles. Ultimately, we need for rich diverse ecosystem of our higher educational institution, public policy makers, and the organization that supports and stakeholder partner in their work to be positioned to defend, protect, and sustain higher education, extremely important role as a trusted source of knowledge, education, and freedom of inquiry, which are essential part of our contemporary life. Science is a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations and predictions about the universe. And it is also the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. Later, the study of science divided into two categories, that is natural sciences and social sciences. Zoology, botany, chemistry, physics, these are all subjects or comes under natural sciences. And history, economics. I would like to conclude my presentation in this word. After end of the colonial era, we are witness for tremendous changes in all over the fields of the society. So new in this global era, we need an educational system that is modern or advanced, liberal, and can adapt to the changing demands of a changing society, a changing economy, and a changing global world. Our higher education and regulatory bodies must identify the key issues and quickly make policies to remove those hurdles. Only one or two universities can't make much difference. If the government welcomes such initiatives which drive our education system forward, then future will be ours. Also, it's very essential of researchers and academicians put effective effort to prove humanities its teaching are still relevant. From the collective effort of all the stakeholders in higher education can make new transformation in this field. Here is few references of this presentation. This also. Here is some suggestions about improvement of higher education.
Today, we are going to have a very interesting topic to talk about. That is about clouds, rainfall, cloud seeding. Can we make rain? That's what we are going to talk today. And this paper is shared by Kamsali Nagaraja and myself, Manikyam. We work in the physics department of Bangalore University. I'm very happy to talk to you about this very interesting topic. Next, we have seen weather forecasters being made fun of for several years, because whatever they say, just the opposite happens. There are many jokes around saying when there is heavy rain, everybody is having an umbrella, and there is one person who is not having it, and there is a local meteorologist who forecast a sunny day. So weather has been the butt of jokes for years together. Next. Further, there are interesting way to forecast the weather. You hang a stone, and if the stone is wet, you say it's raining. If it is dry, it's a hot day. If it is humid, some snowing is there. Like that. This was the very funny way of forecasting, to the extent that even the weatherman says the weather today is anybody's guess. Let us see next. What are the weather parameters? Why it is so difficult to forecast? We all know how much we depend on weather. Any two people meeting, the first thing they talk about is, oh, it's very hot. Oh, today it is very humid. I'm sweating. Or is it not very cold? I think weather actually lives with us. We live with weather. The weather makes our life happy or miserable. Next. Let us now see the very interesting process of how cloud is made. You all seen when you put a bubble in water, it keeps on going up because the bubble is less dense compared to the water. Almost similar thing happens in the atmosphere. Small bubbles are formed with water vapor. They keep on moving, and they grow also. And when they reach a level when the temperature is 0 degree or less, they start becoming water drops. And of course, the whole engine, who is the driver of the whole engine? The weather engine is the sun god, the sun. He gives us radiation, and that is a heating process that makes the whole weather. Next. And you see the fun. God is a big artist, you have to say. Because the type of clouds you see, there are forms of animals, forms of vegetables, all type of colors and hues, and very interesting striations, lines. But basically, I can just share with you, there are only three type of clouds. Those which are much below, stratus clouds, then the cumulus clouds, which are developing, and ultimately the cirrus clouds, which are just floating around in the upper atmosphere. Let us see further. Next. How the cloud rains. How it rains. If you know that only, we can even think of doing something to make the cloud rain. You can see here very dark portions of the clouds, very white portions of the clouds. And we know the color is only due to the water vapor. So basically, within the cloud, what is happening? Ups and downs are there. Up drafts and down drafts. There are air is going up, coming down, going up. It's almost like a enjoying, like a dance. It is happening within the clouds. And because of that, the drops are hitting each other and they become bigger. And ultimately, a stage comes, they cannot hang there for long and they start falling. And there are three types. You can see the raindrops which are falling, hail, sometimes ice, big ice pieces, snow pieces fall, and sometimes it is like a shower, the snowfall and snow shower. Next. Now, the human being has been dreaming for decades together. Can we catch the cloud? Can we get the water? Because the farmers are looking at the sky. They want water for the agriculture. And people want water for drinking, for living. So basically, there's been a dream of the human beings that can we make the clouds rain? Because we see many times clouds are coming and they're going. And then people started doing yagas. In the fire, they put different materials. And, there's a little science in that because a lot of particles are developed by this yaga, yajnas, and they go up. And sometime they create some type of rain. Then people started making machines, weather machines, which can fire some type of powder material into the cloud, whether it will help. And ultimately, you have got also rockets. The rocket goes very far inside the cloud, but all these things failed. It could not prove scientifically that it can rain. Then came the aircrafts and the human beings started going into the cloud and trying different type of materials. Did he succeed? Let us see in the next slide. Yes, we have got the clouds, large clouds are there. And there are two materials which are edible, which don't create any problem for the human beings nor agriculture. And there is a silver iodide and sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is a common salt which we use, and silver iodide. But just take a sack of silver iodide and put it inside the cloud, nothing will happen. Because inside the cloud, you need microparticles, nanoparticles. How you can make it? I'm going to show you the next slide. Yes, we can actually go in the aircraft and shower the clouds with nanoparticles. But before that, I should know where to go, because there are so many clouds and some clouds will rain, some clouds may not rain. It all depends on how much water it is containing. So for that, we have got now equipments. You see here a radar, a big egg-like thing. Inside that, there is an antenna, and that is keeping on watching and giving very good images like this, where I can see the green color, lot of green color, which is all very potential clouds. And again, of course, our own satellite, Indian national satellite is there, always watching over India and giving us the cloud pictures. And then, of course, the weather forecast. You have got big models, computer models which are running. and that can give the forecast which portion of India it's going to rain. So in that areas we can target. So basically we use all these tools to find out, to track which are the clouds where I have to go and fire, where I can try to get some rain. Next I will show you aircraft. This is not the ordinary aircraft. If you go in the ordinary aircraft within the cloud, you will be moving up and down. Pilot may sometime lose control and it will lead to an accident. So these are not that type of aircraft. These are called beech crafts. Beech crafts, very sturdy and which can go into the, they have got jet also and also rotor also. And they go into the clouds, very stable, and then they fire. You can see here, each aircraft will have on one side 12 such rockets, on the other side 12 such rockets. Each rocket can fire into a cloud and about 5 kilometer area. 5 square kilometer area, it can spread the very nano particles. They are either salt particles, as I told you, or the silver iodide. And that can go into the cloud. And then what happens? Let us see. Next slide. You can see what happens. Yeah. Actually, what happens is within the cloud, these particles are helping the water vapor to condense and then fall as rain. So very interesting to see. After the aircraft is hidden, it takes about half an hour. Half an hour, the nature is working on in the cloud, and so then the rain starts falling. And sometimes the rain is so much, it even floods the city. It floods the forest and other agricultural areas. And this is a picture with rain gauges. We have got so many rain gauges. We plot the data, and you see here, these blue dots are where the seeding happened, but quite far away. They are not very near, about 20 kilometers away, the rain is occurring. Why? Because the clouds are always moving. No cloud is standing still. After seeding, it keeps moving. It goes to another place. There it rains. And the rain is sometimes so heavy. The green color is actually few centimeters per hour and to few millimeters per hour. So you got the graphs to show before the seeding, it is only very limited rain, 1 millimeter like that. But it can go up to 70 millimeters, even 7 centimeters. There are places where this rains so heavily. So basically, what we are doing, we are triggering the clouds. The cloud is ready to rain, but due to the thermodynamics, due to the heating, due to the atmospheric conditions, it's not able to rain. But once you put these seeds, why we use the word seeds? Because if you put seeds in the agriculture, what you get? You get harvest. Here, when you put the seeds in the clouds, you get rainfall. And this technique is now a proven technology. There are companies which are operating aircrafts, which come and do the seeding. And many countries like Arabia, which never gets rain, desert areas, Afghanistan, then Thailand, and even China, USA also, some part of USA, they're all using it. So where is human being now? He is trying to sort of control the weather. Can he make the rain? Can he change the temperature? Can he make the earth more livable, more nice, as he is planning to go to other planets? I really enjoyed talking to you all. I hope you had a very nice time hearing to this.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruchita and I'm reading a paper which I've titled The Mythical Twist in Indian Speculative Fiction. So I'll begin reading from my paper. Science fiction is often referred to as the literature of change. It provides readers a sense of wonder under a speculative fiction of what if. As a genre, SF has firm roots in the literary tradition of English and American writings, with writers like Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, Isaac Asimov, John Campbell, Robert A. Heinlein. Early science fiction largely remained a dominance of commercial fiction produced by and for white readers. In the Indian context, science fiction becomes the parabola for modernization. Many Indian authors partake in the exercise of producing science fiction as a means to talk about the innovative practices around the world and introduce the same to their native readers. Jagdish Chandra Bose, the notable scientist, is attributed to have written the first science fiction story in response to a contest as an advertisement for a hair oil product. This innovative story, originally written in Bengali, uses the aforementioned hair oil to tame the cyclone which may destroy the city of Calcutta. Sukumar Ray's Heshuram Hoshiare Diary, a parody of the experimental nature of science and technology, was inspired by Arthur Conan Doyle's Lost Worlds. Marathi writers like S.B. Ranade and Nath Madhav were also producing proto-SF works for Indian readers. With such humble beginnings, Indian SF finds a variety of exposition for the upcoming genre. Towards the end of the 20th century, science fiction in India enters into a much serious phase with notable contributions by Leela Majumdar, Satyajit Ray, Dinesh Chandra Goswami, and later with Bal Phondke, Jayant B. Nalikar, Dilip M. Salvi, and many more. Even though SF is seen as a literature of progress, colonial technology becomes the phenomenon of the future. Some of the early SF in India explicates a similar sentiment by giving stories wherein men of science indulge in crackpot experiments to solve everyday problems. The advent of 1980s emerged with new developments in the SF genre for Indian readership. Indian scientific imagination turns very close to the mythopoeic narrative. Since mythology has always been a part of popular imagination, SF makes ample use of these narratives and establishes this popular quotient. These mythologically inspired stories move considerably away from their traditional narratives, thereby stretching to inculcate contemporary sensibilities. Mythological narrative in Indian SF begins to develop its own unique niche. The superhero genre, which overshadows the comic book culture of the 1980s, thrives on mythology, whereby the protagonist gains his or her superhuman abilities by one or the other mythologically inspired incident. Now, I'm using the example of several novels to explicate my idea. The first novel that I use is Return of Vaman by Jayant V. Nalikar. The author creates a simple plot imbued with Indian sensibilities. The story is set in Gauribidanur, a small village in Karnataka. A team of scientists and archaeologists discover a cube that holds information about a long lost race of super intelligent human beings. The team deciphers the code and is able to build a supercomputer, which is called Guru, which later helps the team to build an AI robot, Vaman. The AI robot turns against its human creators as it wishes to replicate and create more of its kind. Nalikar's use of mythical elements in the novel is less direct. The name of the AI robot, Vaman, is evocative of Vishnu's avatar as a dwarf Brahmin, Vamana. The mythical story of Vamana avatar, as told in Rig Veda, is given a modern interplay whereupon the AI Vaman attempts to enslave the human race, just like the mythical Vamana, who is able to measure the entire universe in 3 strides. The author's use of mythical device could be interpreted as a forewarning to the evil nature of the AI developed by human creators. However, Nalikar curtails the use of mythical Vamana by suggesting that the AI robot was thus named because of its dwarf stature. The vengeful nature of the AI robot is suggested to be an afterthought which lacks any mention in the narrative. Nalikar's use of the namesake Vamana also appears to add that Vishnu's avatar possessed the ability to overtake the universe as if to interpose a discourse on the possible subjugation of subjects. The AI Vaman's action only seem evil when understood from the human point of view, but the AI believes itself to be better than humans, and wishing to replicate only seems natural in its future course of action. The author does not connote any negative implication to the AI robot, but hints at an Asimovian dialectic that the AI could be more emphatically human than the human beings. The next story, Rare Idol of Ganesha, is about an experiment which the protagonist's friend Ajit has been successful at. Ajit has been able to manipulate space and time and is able to manifest mirroring in live objects. He uses his experiment to help out a friend who is a bowler on the verge of retirement. The use of Ganesha in the story does not simply feature as a symbolic presence. It is instrumental in driving the plot. The idol is used to demonstrate the success of the experiment for the protagonist. Ajit utilizes the idol of Ganesha and creates a mirror idol with its trunk on the right, thereby making it rare. This is the use of mythical symbolism in the story that in order to demonstrate the success of a complex scientific experiment, Ganesha becomes instrumental. Moreover, the mythical narrative around Ganesha is that of a Vignaharta and a figure of prominence in marking the beginning of anything new. The right-sided trunk of Ganesha makes him a Siddhivinayak, who is associated with otherworldliness and exponential change in the energies. Nalikar's subtle use of myth indicates that the scientific experiment is a change in cosmic energies and natural existence of worldly objects. But since the idol of Ganesha is neither a live object nor governed by natural laws of human, it can exist as an aberration even after the effects of the experiment are reversed. The next story, Ice Age Cometh by Nalikar, is about a drastic change in Earth's atmosphere, which was predicted by the scientist Professor Vasant Chitnis. whom the protagonists met at a conference. The team of scientists led by the professor come up with a solution to generate heat in the topmost layer of atmosphere by bombarding metallic particles which would absorb the sun rays, fall back on Earth, and further generate enough heat to humidify the air. The experiment is given the name Project Invasion of Indra. The scientists are able to avert the cold wave with their experiment, but another fatality is expected in the coming years. The axis of mythical symbolism is similar with that of the previous story by Nalikar. Here, the experiment is given the name of another Hindu god, Indra, who is the king of all deities and the lord of his heavenly abode situated above the earth. The story is suggested of the war that the humans are waging against the heavens, and Indra bombards them with metallic particles that will ultimately scorch the earth and make it hot. This is one of the general characteristics of Indra, as he is often seen as the deity who possesses powers of lightning, thunder, and is often seen as a warring general among the Hindu god pantheon. Another passing reference is made to the scientists as they wait for the success of their experiment. Since they do not possess equipment which could relay the success of their experiment, they wait like Sanjay from Mahabharata, who possessed the divine sight and narrated the events of the war to Dhritarashtra, who couldn't see. Since the scientists cannot see what is happening in the exosphere, they rely on their geostationary satellites to report the activities of the bombardment to Earth. Now, the next stories that I've taken are from the anthology Breaking the Bow, speculative fiction inspired by Ramayana, which was edited by Anil Menon and Vandana Singh. So, in this anthology, I've taken the story by Indrapramit Das, an established name in the Indian SF genre, writes in Sita's Descent, which is a story of the namesake's evolution as an artificial nebula that must subsume its identity in order to let other ionic clouds, Ram and Ravana, continue their work. The reimagining of Sita as an AI adds to the characteristic quotient to the legendary figure and her penultimate sacrifice. Even though many fictions have reworked the myth of Sita, the story creates a vengeful Sita who does not wish to pass through any ordeal and prove her rightful nature to the subjects who are unaware of her sanctity. Moreover, as an AI, she proves herself to be more receptive to emotions than her human programmers. The author seems to suggest that this Sita is more real than the legendary Sita, who lacks an autonomous voice of her own. Now, the next story, Tabish Khair's Weak Heart, is a two-page first-person narrative by Rama. In this story, Rama is a self-conscious tragic figure who lacks empathy. He is forced to fight a battle, repudiate his wife Sita because he must live up to his godliness. He is motiveless as he claims that his fight was not as personal for him as it was for Ravan, who knew that he was fighting with all his might. The story sustains the idea of a Maryada Purushottam as the Ram delineates from a human being in order to uphold his godly stature but loses his humanity as a collateral. The next story, Ramayana as an American reality show by Kozali Manikavel, brings a comical tone to the incident between Supnakha and Lakshman. This modern 21st century twist to Ramayana becomes a reality show as the mythic characters give live interviews to defend their actions and write long posts about their side of the truth. Another story which reimagines the Ramayana is Manjula Padmanabhan's The Other Woman. The story is about Mandodari, an immortal who takes the form of human, Lady Gugu, to give her version of the events. As the Supreme Court of India is preparing to pass its judgment on the Ram Janmabhoomi case, Mandodari decides to approach the Indian media houses in order to clear the air. She visits Basra Dutt and gives her interview in which she states that there was no Sita to begin with and the invaders were merely driven away from their home island. The popular narrative around Ram, Sita, and Ravan is flawed, and Mandodari believes it is time for her to educate the world with the truth. But her monumental interview drowns in a political cacophony and is soon forgotten because her version does not benefit the larger picture which thrives on religious feuds. Myth forms an integral part of Indian narratives. Through these SF stories, the authors have reinvented a hybrid genre of storytelling. Although a few Western authors have also deployed ancient Greek and Roman myths in their stories, they have strictly remained under the bylanes of fantasy writings. In the Indian context, SF approaches a point of departure from the traditional methods of science fiction writing, wherein space exploration and mythic objects align to create a new genre for the modern populace. Perhaps it could also be said that Indian writings have forever depended on religious ideology as a way of Indianizing Western genres. Genre fiction is brimming with references from myth. SF is only one genre which allows this mutual codependence. The engagement with myth mutate as a contemporary style of storytelling which has been popularized by various authors and publication houses. Comic book and graphic novel have been on a rampage to reinvent their content. Comics like Nagayana, Ramayana 3392, Ravanayana, 18 Days the Mahabharata Retold, Devi, and many more are examples of the new brand of comics and graphic novels that are striving to make myth popular again. With such abundance, SF in the Indian context is metamorphosing into a chimera that is remarkably different from the traditional tales of adventure in science fiction and the folklorist narrative from fantasy writing. Thank you.
Dignitaries, respected teachers, and my dear friends. I am acting as the chairperson of the session of the international conference. My name is Balaji Anandrao Navle. I have been working as the professor and head Department of English Language and Literature of Devgiri College, Aurangabad, Maharashtra State. Friends, we have 5 scholarly papers presented by the young and dynamic scholars on the varied themes. Incredible variety is the beauty and bounty of India that is reflected in science fiction. So we have a very scholarly opening paper by the scholar Sujata Swami on the topic Space Adventures in French Literature. The topic itself is very vital because it has international touch. When we utter the word French literature, psychological perspective is very, very dominant in French literature. Rather, literature in general and French literature in particular is the reflection of human psyche, human relationship from the psychological level. Such kind of literature is nothing but a reflection of human psyche, and the space adventure, the theme of space adventures makes it very, very vital. Congratulates Sujata Swami. Dear friends, we have one more scholarly paper by Dr. Minal Kale ma'am entitled as Time and Space in Jayant Naralikar's Virus. The title becomes very relevant in present context dominated by COVID-19 and the virus. Dr. Minal Kale recently completed her thorough study, PhD doctorate research study on the very topic. She has explored the science fiction corpus of Dr. Jayant Naralikar sir and Samit Basu. So it is expected that a scholar who has completed PhD research work should have a kind of command on the said topic, and accordingly, Dr. Minal Kale ma'am proved that virus and how we fight it, the vision is reflected in the science fiction corpus presented by Dr. Jayant Naralikar, and indirectly, pragmaticism is also available for common readers. So the way the theme is explored, the theme related to time and space is very, very vital, and within time and space she presented, that is very, very important. When we are fighting the virus, we should not forget what is known as the ethics principles associated with humanity. Human touch and the help of machine makes life very, very vibrant and happy. So hearty congratulations, Dr. Minal Kale ma'am. Friends, we have the third paper presented by MB Divya. Title of the paper is Contemporary Concerns and Challenges in Higher Education, Some Reflection on Humanities. This is a very special topic, and we are eagerly waiting for the access for the entry of science fiction in curriculum. What is the condition of higher education? When the arise of New University Act, one will witness the complete metamorphosis of higher education in India. But what happens with agriculture should not happen with higher education. Let us hope. My point of view is that proper execution of the New University Act is a challenge to almost all stakeholders. So education is somehow the solution of all our problems. Many scholars presented it, but a criticism is presented by Bapusaheb Kaldate, a well-known scholar, and he stated that what is education in India? Very bitterly he comments that education in India is nothing but a donkey's tail. Where the donkey goes, the tail follows. So the donkey archetypal level is just a politician. We expect the art of impossible from the politician, at least the proper execution of the new University Act is concerned, then and then a hopeful picture is available. Thank you very much, Divya ma'am, for a wonderful and scholarly paper. Friends, we have a collaborative work presented by Kamsali Nagaraja and Balkishan Manikiyam. Collaboratively, they presented a paper, a very wonderful paper. Does cloud seeding increase rainfall? A fact and fiction. What is nature and human relationship? Day by day, the harmonious nature-human relationship is somehow eradicating. Many factors are responsible, but see the abnormal behavior of nature caused by the very interference of human being. The subtitle of the paper is worth considerable. Fact and fiction means in the field of literature, they are no more antonyms. Rather, they are supporting how we can understand life with the help of fiction. A detective officer somehow points out who are the culprits with the help of pen picture. That is a kind of fictional picture. Fiction based on imagination is the only reliable source to understand the reality. Let us hope such kind of paper will give a kind of vision, a clue, tips to strengthen the nature-human relationship. This is in fact a very pragmatic paper and need of the time. Last but not the least, we have a very good paper by Ruchita Marshall. The title of the paper is The Mythical Twist in Indian Speculative Fiction. How is the growth and development of science fiction in India? The seminal form is none other than speculative fiction. Once upon a time, science fiction was a speculation. Later on, it became an extrapolation. And in the present time, it is thought experimentation. So the field of mythology, myth is very, very fertile, where one can borrow many themes. But what is twist? Many a times a creative writer deconstructs the available myth. There is much difference between mirror and literature. In the mirror, we have a clear-cut picture, reflection as it is. On the other hand, creative writer changes. Sometimes the picture is ironical, sometimes witty, sometimes exaggerated or ideal, sometimes below the average, but never as it is. And this is the difference between mirror and what is known as literature. So the way the writer somehow offers a kind of new beginning. For example, we have one poem, The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats, where the new incarnation of Jesus Christ is associated with a tiger, not the lamb. Accordingly, we have very interesting field associated with our great epic like Ramayana and Mahabharata, and such kind of papers, research paper, will provide new avenues to both creative writers and critics. By and large, friends, all these scholarly papers presented by these scholars are worth considerable. So on behalf of all of you, I heartily congratulate all these research papers. Thank you very much.